vor dir kommen kann heute Abend.
Thank you that we can spend this time in study.
Danke, dass wir diese Zeit im Studium verbringen können.
Help us to cherish this privilege that we have to come to you.
Und hilft uns, diese Privileg, die wir haben, zu dir zu kommen, recht wertzuschätzen.
I ask that you help Brother Lorenz as he's leading out.
Bitte segne Bruder Lorenz, als er die Klasse leitet.
Also the translation and the recording of the live stream.
Bitte segne auch die Übersetzung, die Aufnahme und die Livestream.
And especially help us to understand the plan of salvation and make it our own and live it.
Bitte hilft uns, die Erlösungsplan zu verstehen, dass wir es eigen machen und dass wir es ausleben können.
And we thank you for this in Jesus' name.
Und wir danken dir dafür in Jesu Namen.
Right. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 1.
Kommen wir zu Ezekiel Kapitel 1.
Let us read verse 1 and then also verse 5 and verse 5.
Wir lesen Vers 1 und danach Vers 5.
It says, Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Sheba, that the heavens were opened and I saw visions of God. And maybe also the
Vers 4 und 5 jetzt.
And I looked, and behold, the world came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself, and a brightness clouded, and out of the midst thereof, as the color of amber out of the midst of the fire, also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this was the appearance, they had the likeness of a man. So, where are we on our line?
So, wo sind wir auf unserer Linie?
Right.
Am 5. Tag des 4. Monats.
What does he see here?
Und was sieht er hier?
Creatures.
Which are the 4 cherubims.
Diese 4 lebendige Wesen, was diese 4 Cherubim sind.
Okay. In the 4 cherubims, what are they always connected to?
Und diese 4 Cherubim, mit was sind sie immer in Verbindung?
The 7 last plagues, the 4 winds.
Yes, correct.
7 letzten Plagen oder die 4 Winde.
Okay.
The sanctuary.
Yes, with the sanctuary.
Also das Heiligtum.
Exactly. You're quick to pick it up, right? Okay, with the sanctuary.
Also das Heiligtum.
So, and because when we go down,
Also wenn wir hinunterkommen,
because it says here now in verse 26,
im Vers 26 sagt es,
and above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness of the appearance of a man above upon it. Okay, so what does he see here?
so was sieht er hier?
Sees the throne,
Also
right?
er sieht das Thron.
Because the cherubims are always connected with the throne,
Die
right?
Cherubim sind immer mit das Thron.
So wherever the cherubims are, the throne is also there.
So wo die Cherubim sind, da ist auch der Thron.
And he sees now Christ basically on the throne, right?
Und er sieht Christus auf dem Thron.
And we know in verse 28, he's now humbled therefore in the dust.
Und in Vers 28 wissen wir, dass deswegen ist er im Staub gedemütigt.
So, and where is this now on the line when he sees the throne and is humbled in the dust?
Und wo ist das auf die Linie, wo er diesen Thron sieht und im Staub gedemütigt wird? Midnight Cry.
Yes, at the midnight cry. Right?
Also am Mitternachtsschub.
So if we would just draw out the line here,
Wir machen nur unsere Linie hier.
and to verse 14,
2,14,
midnight,
Mitternacht,
midnight cry,
die Mitternachtsruf
and civil Sunday law.
und das zivile Sonntagsgesetz.
So, Ezekiel 1 begins here,
Ezekiel 1 fängt gerade hier an,
but here he sees the throne. Right?
aber es ist hier am Mitternachtsruf, wo er den Thron sieht.
So therefore, what does he do?
So was tut er?
Where does he look into?
Wo schaut er hinein?
Most holy soul.
Yes, he looks into the sanctuary.
Er
right?
schaut in das Heiligtum hinein,
And
das
who else
Allerheiligste.
Looks into the sanctuary here at midnight cry.
Und wer noch schaut in das Heiligtum
Yes.
hier am Mitternacht?
Isaiah,
Das ist
right?
Jesaja.
So it's also Isaiah chapter 6. Yeah.
Das ist auch Jesaja Kapitel 6 hier.
So therefore, when the light comes,
So, deswegen, wenn das Licht kommt,
and also I just remember this, when the light comes in the vision in early writings 54 and 55,
also wenn das Licht kommt in das Vision von Ellen White in Frühschriften 54, 55,
where does Sister White look into?
wo schaut Ellen White hinein?
Yes, she also sees the throne.
Sie
Right?
sieht auch das Thron.
She asked if
So-
the Father had a likeness.
Yes, therefore the throne is already mentioned here.
Also
Also.
der Thron ist auch hier erwähnt.
So therefore, what can we expect? What is the Lord trying to open us up in this time here?
So, was möchte der Herr für uns hier in dieser Zeit öffnen?
The plan is salvation.
Yes, the plan of salvation, which is the
Erlösungsplan, was auch ist
sanctuary.
das
Okay.
Heiligtum.
So, therefore, I thought, okay, that as we now approach this time, that we should already look a little bit at the sanctuary.
So, da dachte ich, da wir diese Zeit annähern, wir sollten das Heiligtum etwas näher anschauen.
Because the Lord cannot open up something that we haven't looked at before. Okay.
Der Herr wird nichts öffnen, was wir nicht bereits angeschaut haben.
So, in this sense, tonight I want to look at Solomon's temple.
So,
Okay.
heute Abend möchte ich den Tempel von Salomo anschauen.
And I don't want to go so much into what these things represent, because most things I don't know myself. Okay.
Also, ich möchte nicht unbedingt so weit gehen, dass wir auslegen, was alles darstellt, denn die meisten Sachen verstehe ich auch nicht.
But at least that we know how Solomon's temple was arranged.
Aber zumindest, dass wir wissen, wie Salomo sein Tempel ausgelegt ist oder ausgestattet.
Because it was quite different from Moses.
Denn es war sehr unterschiedlich von die von Mose in
Okay.
der Wüste.
Let's go therefore to 2 Chronicles.
So, lasst uns jetzt zur 2. Chronik gehen.
And let's read the begin in chapter 3.
Und in Kapitel 3, 2. Chronik 3.
Okay. And we can read down to verse 4.
Und wir fangen von Vers 1 an und lesen bis Vers 4.
And we can start with Philip and then we can just go like this. Okay. Philip, you want to read this for us, please? 2 Chronicles 3, verses 1 to 4.
2. Chronik 3, die Verse 1 bis 4.
Then Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, in Mount Moriah, where the Lord appeared unto David his father, in the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. And he began to build on the 2nd day of the 2nd month, in the 4th year of his reign. Now these are the things wherein Solomon was instructed for the building of the house of God. The length by cubits after the first measure was 60 cubits, and the breadth 20 cubits.
Okay, stop here. Maybe. So how long was the temple building?
So bis Vers 3 haben wir gelesen. So wie lange war diese Tempelbau?
60 cubits long.
It was 60 cubits, okay.
Also 60 Cubits, Ellen?
Ja.
60 Ellen lang.
Okay, and how the breadth thereof?
Und die Breite dessen?
20.
20 Ellen.
Okay, maybe my measurements are not like perfect here, but yeah.
Also meine Maßen sind hier nicht bildlich genau, aber das so.
Okay, but doesn't matter.
Aber das macht nichts.
Let's continue down to verse 4.
Also jetzt Vers 4.
And the porch that was in the front of the house, the length of it was according to the breadth of the house, 20 cubits, and the height was 120, and he overlaid it within of pure gold.
Okay. So now he speaks about the porch,
So, jetzt spricht er über die Säulenhalle,
which was before the house, right?
was vor dem Haus war.
So therefore, this is called the house here.
So,
Okay,
das hier ist das Haus, wird das Haus genannt.
okay. The porch is here,
Und hier ist der Säulenhalle.
and what were its measurements?
Und was war die Maße?
What does it say here?
Was sagt es?
According to the breadth of the house.
Yes.
So, I think, if I understand this correctly, it means
20.
the length of it was according to the breadth of the house, so it has to have the same measurements
Und
as the.
Es würde so lang sein.
Yeah.
20 lang.
Your illustration is not correct. Yeah, it has also 20 cubits.
Okay. And what does it then say?
He says 20 cubits.
Yes, but it says,
The height is
as
100.
I understand it, says here, in the porch that was in the front of the house, the length of it was according to the breadth of the house.
Yes,
So the length, which is this here, right? This was the length,
yes.
was according to the breadth of the house, so it was 20.
20 Cubits.
Ah, okay.
Das würde Sinn machen.
Yeah.
Also das wäre dann auch 20 Ellen.
So the proportions are not quite good here, but it doesn't matter. And then it says, it just speaks about the height here, right? Okay, maybe keep your finger here, because now let's go to 1 Kings,
Also haltet euren Platz hier, aber gehen wir jetzt zum 1. Könige,
chapter 6 it is,
Kapitel 6,
because that gives us also the breadth of the porch.
weil da gibt es den Maß für die Breite von der Säulenhalle.
Let's read 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 3.
Also 1. Könige, Kapitel 6 und Vers 3.
And David, you want to read this for us, please?
The porch before the temple of the house, 20 cubits was the length thereof, according to the breadth of the house, and 10 cubits was the breadth thereof before the house.
Yes. Okay. So it had 10 cubits the breadth.
So
Okay.
es war 10 Ellen breit.
Okay. And what does it bring to your remembrance, or should bring to your remembrance?
Und was,
Yes.
sorry?
Flying roll.
Also was
Okay.
bringt das zur Erinnerung? Und es ist der fliegende Buch.
Go to the live stream.
Also geht jetzt zum Livestream.
There I posted this quote just as a reminder.
Es gibt ein Zitat da, nur zur Erinnerung.
Yes. I mean, this is not a good illustration. Okay.
Also das hier ist nicht unbedingt eine gute Darstellung.
Actually, this should be longer and this should be shorter.
Also
Okay.
das muss hier länger sein und die Breite hier kürzer.
Shall I change it for your mind, or is it? Can you?
Also sollen wir das ummalen oder können wir damit leben?
Just
Okay. Maybe otherwise it might drain.
people are very spatially challenged.
Yes. Okay. So it's more like this.
No.
It's not even in the middle. It doesn't matter. Okay, so that should be a little bit more on that side, but it's okay. So it's 10 and 20.
10 und 20 jeweils Ellen.
Okay, so do you have your cell phone, Margaret? Then you can read the quote.
No, I don't.
Okay. Somebody else got it?
This rule. This roll, 20 cubits in length and 10 cubits in breadth, was the measurements of the porch of Solomon's temple. In this roll is written the name of the wrongdoer unless he repents.
Okay, it's already enough. First sentence is enough. Okay, it says, she clearly says the measurements of the roll were the same measurements as the porch of the
Das sagt, die Maßen von dieser Rolle waren dieselben Maßen von der Säulenhalle von Salomos Tempel.
Okay. So, therefore this porch teaches us something about the flying roll.
So,
Okay.
diese Säulenhalle lehrt uns etwas über der fliegende Buchrolle.
Okay. Now let's go back to 2 Chronicles chapter 3.
Zurück zur 2. Chronik und Kapitel 3. Moment.
Okay. 2 Chronicles chapter 3. And let's continue. Let's continue with verse 8.
Und lasst uns jetzt Vers 8 lesen.
Let's read verse 8 to verse
11.
Verse 8 bis 11.
Yes. 2 Chronicles 3 verses 8 to 11.
2. Chronik 3, Verse 8 bis 11.
And I think it's you, Brother Mark.
And he made the most holy house, the length whereof was according to the breadth of the house 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 20 cubits. And he overlaid it with fine gold, amounting to 600 talents.
Okay, stop here. So, okay, this is especially not. Next time I will sketch it out better. Okay.
So, nächstes Mal werde ich das etwas besser ausmalen, aber
Okay, it's also 20. Okay, so it's basically a cubit.
so
Okay.
das von hier bis hier ist auch 20, also das soll ein Viereck sein.
Cube.
Ja?
A cube, yes.
Or cube. Yeah. You don't say cubit.
Square.
Square. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yes, correct.
Yes. It's a cubit.
It won't be high as well, but it's
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I think it was actually 30 cubits high, if I remember correctly. But okay, let's continue.
Also weiterlesen. Vers 9.
Verse 9 to 11, please.
yes. It says, and the weight of the nails was 50 shekels of gold, and he overlaid the upper chambers with gold. And in the most holy house he made 2 cherubims of image work, and overlaid them with gold. And the wings of the cherubims were 20 cubits long. One wing of the one cherub was 5 cubits, reaching to the wall of the house, and the other wing was likewise 5 cubits, reaching to the wing of the other cherub.
Okay, so we make it now bird's eye view. Okay,
Also
is
wir
it correctly?
tun das,
Yeah.
wir tun das aus der Perspektive eines Vogels. Wir schauen von oben herab.
Okay, so there's one cherub
Hier ist ein Cherub
and here's another one.
und hier ist ein anderer.
And they had wings.
Und die hatten Flügel.
So I'm probably not the best person to draw these things, but
5, 5, 5, 5.
that's
Ich bin sicherlich nicht der
okay.
beste Künstler.
Alright. Okay, so 5, 5, 5, 5.
Also 5 Ellen, 5 Ellen, 5 Ellen und 5 Ellen.
In total 20 cubits, right?
Insgesamt 20.
Okay. So and one wing was touching this wall, and then they touched each other here in the middle. Okay.
Und diese Flügel hat den Wand berührt und berührten sie sich in der Mitte und wieder der Wand.
Alright. Okay. Let's continue. Let's read verses 12 down to verse 13.
So, und jetzt Verse 12 und 13.
Susie?
And one wing of the other cherub was 5 cubits, reaching to the wall of the house, and the other wing was 5 cubits, also joining to the wing of the other cherub. The wings of these cherubims spread themselves forth 20 cubits, and they stood on their feet, and their faces were inward.
Okay. So what about their faces?
So, was ist mit ihrem Gesichter?
It says they were inward, right?
Sie waren nach innen gedreht.
And when you look at the margin,
Und wenn du den Nebenbemerkungen in der Bibel schaust,
what does it say here?
was sagt es hier?
In das Haus.
Yes. It says here
Towards house.
towards the house.
Es sagt hier zur Haus gedreht.
And we already saw, right, the porch was before the house, so this is the house,
So,
right?
wir haben gesehen, dass die Säulenhalle vor das Haus war, also das gesamte hier ist das Haus.
Therefore, when they had their faces toward the house, they were looking this direction,
So,
right?
wenn sie ihre Gesichter zum Haus hatten, dann schauten sie in diese Richtung.
Okay. Right. So, and maybe just before we continue, maybe let's identify the four, how we say, Himmelsrichtungen, the four directions of the heaven. Let's say
4 winds or
four winds.
north, south, east, and west.
Yes. So where's where here?
So, lasst uns die Himmelsrichtung erstes Mal verstehen, wo ist, welche Richtung ist was.
So east
Hier.
is the entry.
Yes.
Das hier ist das Osten
How do we know this?
Woher wissen wir das?
Yes. Ezekiel chapter 8, right?
Ezekiel 8.
Because the 25 elders, they were with a back towards the temple, worshipping the sun towards the east.
Denn
It
die
says, right?
25 Ältesten hatten ihren Rücken zum Tempel und sie bauten sich zum Osten hin.
And the throne's on the side of the north.
Yes. Okay. So the north would be here, right? And over against, or the opposite side of east is west. So the most holy place was in the west,
So das Allerheiligste war im Westen
and then you had the south.
und dann hier natürlich haben wir den Süden.
Okay. Alright. So then let's continue.
Weiter.
Let's read verse 15 to verse 17.
Und jetzt die Verse 15 bis 17.
Thank you, Führer.
Also he made before the house 2 pillars of 30 and 5 cubits high, and the chapiter that was on the top of each of them was 5 cubits, and he made chains as in the oracle, and put them on the heads of the pillars, and made 100 pomegranates, and put them on the chains. And he reared up the pillars before the temple, one on the right hand and the other on the left hand, and called the name of that on the right hand Jachin, and the name of the one on the left Boaz.
Yes. Okay. So, how many pillars do we have?
So wie viele Säulen gibt es?
2.
2.
Okay. And it's Jachin and Boaz.
Und es ist Jachin und Boaz.
And they were on the right and the left side.
Und sie
Okay.
waren auf den rechten und linken Seiten.
So, where's the right and where's the left side in the sanctuary?
So in das Heiligtum, wo ist das rechte und wo ist das linke Seite?
They were in front of the porch, right?
Yes.
Sie waren vor der Säulenhalle.
Okay.
So,
Second. Forgot to find this verse because
I mean, it says he made before the house.
okay, let's go to no. It's not the right verse.
I remember how they work all this.
Yes, yes.
Certain way.
I have the verse, but I forgot where it is.
Tells you where the big drum is of the brass, what do you call it? Cauldron.
Yes.
Ah,
But the kings, where is it?
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. Let me see, it's on the southeast. Where is it?
Here. Let's go to 2 Chronicles 4, verse 10.
So das ist 2. Chronik 4 und Vers 10.
I hope that is clear enough, but there's definitely a more clear verse to show this. Okay, it says, and he set the sea on the right side of the east end over against the south. So where did he put the sea?
what is the sea?
It's the big.
It's the brazen laver.
Laver
Foot
von Wasser.
washing on Moses,
Yeah,
but in this one it was huge. It was a big, huge thing called a sea.
yeah. I mean, I've seen it on a picture somewhere illustrated. But so southeast it would be.
So he puts it on the south, right?
So tut es auf den Süden
So it's here, and it's at the east end.
und es ist am Ostende, so
So-
hier.
The east end's there, but more towards the south. So it's right on the corner
Yes,
there. Yeah.
right, exactly. Okay,
But it says on the right.
and so it's on the right.
Yes.
Yes.
So es ist
Okay.
auf den rechten
So
Seite.
this would be right,
So das hier wäre der rechte Seite
and this would be left.
und das wäre dann links sein.
Okay, so because therefore how do you must therefore view the sanctuary?
So, wie sollen wir denn den Heiligtum betrachten?
Like this.
Yes, like the cherubims,
Also
right?
von der Sicht der Cherubim.
Because the cherubims, they look this way, so they stand this way, then you have the right here and the left here.
Die Cherubim, die schauen in diese Richtung, also für sie, denn das ist ihre rechte und das ist ihre linke.
So when somebody, a sinner, would come in, he would face the sanctuary like this, right?
Also wenn eine Sünder hineinkommt, dann wäre das Heiligtum andersrum
Okay.
gegenüberstehen.
So therefore the sanctuary goes from this direction.
So, das
Okay.
Heiligtum ist von dieser Richtung zu betrachten.
Okay. So and therefore when we go back to the pillars,
So, wenn wir jetzt zurück zu den Säulen gehen,
so on the right hand was in Jachin in verse 17, right?
Vers 17, auf der rechten Seite war Jachin.
So here's Jachin.
It's interesting because it also means Jehoiachin.
Yes, exactly.
Und Jachin heißt auch Jehoiachin.
And here was Boaz. Okay.
Da Boas.
And Jachin means the Lord will establish, and Boaz means in him, in the Lord is strength.
Also
Okay.
Jachin heißt, der Herr wird etablieren, und Boas heißt, in ihm, der Herr ist Stärke.
Yes. Okay. So, remember a couple of years ago, right, with Jeff, we looked into this thing with the two pillars.
Vor ein paar Jahren mit Jeff zusammen, wir haben sogar diese Säulen angeschaut.
It was a nice study. Maybe we can look at this again.
There's a nice picture of this when it's done to scale. Along the sides of the thing, there's these place where the priest stayed, right?
Yes.
And when you have it all laid out and the pillars and all the rest of it, it looks like a man. It looks like a person, and they're like this, looking at you, you know, and the two pillars are his legs. And that's how we understood that this was an illustration of Christ. And the two pillars, because he walked with these fiery
Yes.
things.
So Revelation 10,
Yes.
right? The pillars. Yes.
Same with the tabernacle, it looks like a cross. You know,
Yes.
you have it all.
Yes, exactly.
Also wenn du so ein Modell von Salomos Tempel anschaust, also wenn das in der Seite, es gab sogar Flügeln für die Priester, die gewohnt haben. Und wenn man es genau angeschaut hat, das sah aus wie ein Mann, also mit den zwei Säulen waren die Beine und der Körper, und diese Flügeln waren die Ärmel und so weiter. Und Bruder Connor hat gesagt, dass der Tempel in der Wüste, da sah aus wie ein Kreuz, wenn du es angeschaut hast. Also beide stellen Christus dar.
Yes. So there's definitely very, very deep things in
Also
the
auf
sanctuary.
jeden Fall gibt es tiefe Sachen in das Heiligtum zu sehen.
Okay. And let's go now down to chapter 4,
Und jetzt zu Kapitel 4.
because now here come some differences compared with the tabernacle that Moses erected.
Und jetzt gibt es einige Unterschiede im Gegensatz zu den Heiligtum, die Mose gebaut hatte.
And let's read verse 6 and down to verse 8.
Und wir lesen die Verse 6 bis 8.
Kannst du vielleicht Fenster aufmachen? Yeah. 2 Chronicles 4, verse 6 to 8.
He made also 10 pavers, put 5 on the right hand and 5 on the left, to wash in them such things as they offered for the burnt offering they wash in them. But the
Okay.
sea,
Yes.
the sea was for the priest to wash in.
Okay, so how many lavers did he make?
So, wie viele Waschbecken, danke, gab es?
10.
10.
And where did he put them?
Und wo waren sie aufgerichtet?
Yes, on the right and on the left,
Also
right?
5 auf das rechte und 5 auf das
So I don't know how they exactly were lined up, but maybe like this, but maybe also differently.
Ich weiß nicht genau, wie sie aufgestellt worden sind. Vielleicht so, aber vielleicht dann auch anders.
They could be moved around, but they were sitting there.
Maybe they were also lined up like this, so we have to study it out, okay?
Also vielleicht waren sie so aufgestellt, aber das mussten wir auch studieren.
Okay, and there were additional to this big laver here.
Und sie waren zusätzlich zu diesen großen Waschbecken.
And what was the difference? What was washed in here and what was washed in there?
Was war der Unterschied? Was war hier gewaschen und was hier? Also das was the sacrifices and this was for the priest.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
Also die waren für die Opfergaben gewaschen zu sein, die für die Brandopfer und die waren für die Priester zu waschen.
Okay.
Also das war für die Priester zu waschen.
Alright, let's read now verse 7.
Vers 7.
And he made 10 candlesticks of gold according to their form, and set them in the temple, 5 on the right hand and 5 on the left.
Okay, also read verse 8, please.
Und Vers 8.
He made also 10 tables and placed them at the temple, 5 on the right side, 5 on the left. He made 100 basins of gold.
Okay. So, how many candlesticks and how many tables did he make?
Also wie viele Leuchter und wie viele Tische gab es?
10.
Jeweils 10.
And he put 5 on that side and 5 on that side.
Und
Okay.
5 jeweilige Seiten. Auf
So-
den jeweiligen Seiten.
I have to draw many candlesticks, okay. Just make. Okay. Just to simplify this, what the okay. Okay. So it's definitely a difference.
So, auf jeden Fall ist das unterschiedlich.
Okay, because usually the table was always in the north, right?
In den Heiligtümern von Mose, das Tisch von Schaubrot war hier im Norden
And the candlestick was in the south.
und der Leuchter war hier im Süden.
Okay, but now you have both on both sides.
Aber jetzt hast du beide auf beide Seiten.
Okay. So I have absolutely no idea what this means. Okay.
Und ich habe überhaupt keine Ahnung, was das bedeuten soll.
Okay. And
10 candlestick it was?
it says here in verse
Okay.
7, right?
Vers 7 sagt es.
10 candlesticks. And then what is still left in this illustration?
Und was ist noch, was bleibt noch aus in dieser Darstellung?
Yes, a golden altar.
Also der goldene Altar.
The altar of incense.
Das Altar, das Räucheraltar.
Okay. So let's see if it's in Kings, because I couldn't find the altar here in Chronicles. Yes. I mean, it doesn't say where he placed it exactly, but let's go to 1 Kings chapter 7.
1. Könige Kapitel 7.
Let's read verse 48. There is mentioned the altar of gold.
In Vers 48, da ist dieser goldene Altar erwähnt. Aber wo es gestellt ist, sagt es nicht.
Okay. But it's most likely here in the middle because it was in Moses' sanctuary in the middle, right? And
Und es ist wahrscheinlich da in der Mitte, denn da war es in das Heiligtum von
and it's
Mose.
only one altar of gold.
Und es gibt nur einen goldenen Altar.
It says, and Solomon made all the vessels that pertained unto the house of the Lord, the altar of gold and the table of gold whereupon the showbread was. Okay, so here we see he made the altar of gold.
So, hier können wir sehen, er machte das goldene Altar.
Okay, So when we go back to 2 Chronicles,
Also wenn wir, I mean, that would suggest that the table upon the showbread was just singular, but the tables that were read in Chronic were something different.
Vers hast du gerade gelesen?
What?
no, 1 Kings 7:48.
It's because he says, he made the vessels that pertain to the house of the Lord, the altar of gold and the table of gold, whereupon the showbread was. So it would suggest that these 10 tables are not the table of showbread, but they're something different, maybe tables that the candles were upon, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't say table of sugar. I also wondered.
It just said tables in
Just said
Mhm.
tables, yeah.
2 Chronicles.
Okay, maybe that's correct.
I think also otherwise it's candlesticks plural and then only table.
This might be correct. I mean, I'm open to this. Okay, we should study this out.
Also wir sollten das auf jeden Fall ausstudieren.
Okay.
It says this included the altar of incense, the table of sugar, the candlestick, and lamps. Okay.
That's probably about Moses' century.
It's about Solomon's.
Okay, so this is something we can look at later. Okay, whether there was an extra table of showbread besides these 10 tables.
Also es ist irgendetwas, was wir später vielleicht forschen können, ob es den Tisch für den Schaubrot gab, also anders als diese 10 Tische hier.
Well, in the verse that you just read, it says, Solomon made all the vessels that pertained unto the house of the Lord, and the altar of gold and the table of gold whereupon the showbread was.
Yes.
So there was definitely a table where the showbread was on, but this is a singular table.
Yes.
It doesn't say multiple tables, it just says one table.
Yes.
But it
Yeah.
doesn't say where it is.
Yes, that might be correct. Because when we go back to 2 Chronicles chapter 4, it says in verse 8, he made also 10 tables. Doesn't necessarily mean tables of showbread. Okay.
Also in 2. Chronik 4 sagt 10 Tische, aber das muss nicht unbedingt 10 Tische für den Schaubrot heißen.
Okay. So maybe that's therefore a false illustration here.
Also vielleicht ist das denn hier eine falsche Darstellung.
So I erase the showbreads until we know the definite answer.
Also ich nehme die Schaubrote hier weg, bis wir das
Aber was für Tische gab es im Heiligtum außer das
It's because you say that it can only be one showbread because it illustrates the throne where Christ and his Father are sitting.
Yes. I mean, yeah, he just placed the additional tables into it. I mean, they might have a meaning, okay.
Also er hat nur zusätzliche Tische hier hinzugefügt, also die mögen vielleicht eine andere Bedeutung haben, aber
I don't know what they mean. Okay.
wir wissen nicht, was die heißen.
But
There's a lot of things here, and I'm wondering where they are. I think maybe on the table. I mean, all these flowers, lamps, stones of gold, bowls, snuffers, basins, spoons.
yes, what do you read?
In
1 Kings 7:50.
chapter 7,
Mm-hmm.
the next verses.
49 and 50.
Mm-hmm.
Censers.
1. Könige 7, 49 und 50 lesen wir jetzt.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, it might be very well be that on these tables these instruments were laid upon.
Also es mag sehr wohl möglich sein, dass auf diese Tische diese ganze verschiedene Werke für den Altardienst draufgelegt worden sind.
There are exactly 10 tables, that's like 10 tables. Candlestick. Maybe all this stuff are for one table for one candlestick, and all the spoons, bowls. Maybe.
What does it say specifically what instruments? Or because spoon, I mean a spoon is like,
Bowls, snuffers, basins, spoons, censers,
okay.
and the hinges of gold, also alles plural, alles Mehrzahl.
Yes.
Okay.
And it says there were so many, on the other verse, there were so many things, he didn't even count it. Okay, so.
Also es gab so viele Dinge, dass sie gar nicht aufgezählt hat.
Alright, yeah. So this might be a good hint to look after, or to study out.
Mag vielleicht ein guter Hinweis sein.
the temple is, I mean, it's an illustration of the real temple in heaven as well, right?
Das ist eine Darstellung von der wahren Tempel im Himmel auch noch.
I mean, that's maybe a silly thought, but it's 10 tables. Maybe that's the tables where they. I think Alva says it's one long table.
It's a mile long.
Yeah, never mind then.
I also thought about this.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We'll see. It will be definitely something beautiful.
Also im Himmel gibt es diesen Tisch, die eine Meile lang ist oder so, aber
Okay.
auf jeden Fall im Himmel wird das was sehr Wunderschönes darstellen.
No, I mean this truth when we understand. Yes.
Diese Wahrheit.
Yeah, I was thinking
Okay.
about
Ten
Yes.
what? Ach, die 10 Stämme.
Yeah. We had 12 tribes. Okay.
Wir haben 12
Yes,
Stämme.
but 10 of Israel and 2 of Judah.
Okay, but let us just now continue because these things we should just look at closely in our personal study time.
Also wir sollen diese Dinge in unserer eigenen Zeit näher ausstudieren.
Okay, let's go back to 2 Chronicles chapter 4.
Zurück zu 2. Chronik 4.
And let us just read verse 15.
Und Vers 15 lesen wir.
And Sister Sandra, can you read this for us? 2 Chronicles 4:15.
2. Chronik 4,15.
1 sea and 12 oxen on that.
Okay. So under this sea, how many oxen were there?
So, unter diese See, wie viele Ochsen gab es?
Well, 6 on each side.
12.
Also 12.
Not totally. Let's go to, keep your finger here because we will always jump back and forth between Kings and Chronicles.
They are
Haltet euren
holding
Platz.
up this
Let's
sea.
go
Haltet euren
to
Platz hier.
1 Kings chapter 7
Gehen wir zu 1. Könige 7
and let's read verse 25.
und Vers 25.
First Kings chapter 7 verse 25.
1. König 7, 25.
Connor, you want to read this?
It stood upon 12 oxen, 3 looking toward the north, and 3 looking toward the west, and 3 looking toward the south, and 3 looking toward the east. And the sea was set above upon them, and all their hinder parts were inward.
Okay, so you also basically have here then the 4 directions of heaven.
Und hier hast du auch den 4 Himmelsrichtungen erwähnt.
Sorry?
It's like Jerusalem because it had 3 gates on each side.
Yes.
There's like 3 oxen on each side.
Wie der Stadt Jerusalem, auf jeder Seite hat man 3 Toren. Und hier hat man diese 3 Ochsen auf die jeweiligen Seiten.
And let's read also the next verse.
Nächsten Vers auch noch.
Daniela, you want to read this first?
And it was an hand breadth thick, and the brim thereof was brought like the brim of a cup with bowls of lilies. It contained 2,000 baths.
Okay, so how much water was in here?
So, wie viel Wasser gab es hier drin?
2000 Meter.
Yes.
2000 Bäder.
2000 baths, okay.
What is it?
Das ist ein Maßnahme.
Yeah.
Einfach ein Maßeinheit.
And when you jump down now to verse 38,
Und wenn wir jetzt zu Vers 38 kommen,
Sister Margaret, you want to read this first?
28?
38.
30. Then made he 10 lavers of brass. One laver contained 40 baths, and every laver was 4 cubits, and upon every one of the 10 bases 1 laver.
Okay, so how many baths were in those here?
so, wie viele Bäder gab in diese Waschbecken?
40 each, right?
Jeweils 40.
So 40, 40, 40, and so you can see this one was a huge one.
Also wir können sehen, dass diese war enorm.
Right, and all these things obviously mean something.
Und all diese Dinge haben eine Bedeutung.
Okay, go back to 2 Chronicles, please.
Zurück zu 2. Chronik.
And let's go now to chapter 5.
Und jetzt zu Kapitel 5.
2 Chronicles chapter 5.
2. Chronik 5.
And let us read verse 1. Actually, we can start in verse 2.
Und wir fangen in Vers 2.
Let's read verse 2 down to verse 10.
2 bis 10.
And Marius, you want to read the first verses, and I will stop you.
He says, Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes, the chief of the fathers of the children of Israel, unto Jerusalem, to bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord of the city of David, which is Zion. Wherefore all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto the king in the feast which was in the 7th month. And all the elders of Israel came, and the Levites took up the ark. And they brought up the ark, and the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle. These did the priest and the Levites bring up. Also King Solomon and all the congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him before the ark sacrificed sheep and oxen, which could not be told nor numbered for multitude. And the priest brought in the ark of the covenant of the Lord unto his place to the oracle of the house, into the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubims.
Okay, stop here. So what is described here? What do they do here?
So, was wird hier beschrieben? Was tun sie? Bringen the ark.
Yes, they bring the ark into the most holy place.
Sie bringen die Bundeslade in das Allerheiligste hinein.
And how is, in verse 7, how is the most holy place called here?
Und Vers 7, wie wird der Allerheiligste genannt?
What does it say?
House. What in the house is
Das ist
the
das
most holy
the
place.
Oracle.
Oracle. Okay.
Das Orakel des Hauses.
So that's the oracle.
So, das hier ist das Orakel.
Okay. And then the Ark of the Covenant was placed where?
Und die Bundeslade war wo platziert? Under the wings.
Under the wings, right.
Unter den Flügeln.
So basically, okay, it's then placed.
So there was only an empty place which was called a oracle.
There was the most holy place, was called
Yes,
the oracle.
but the whole thing was called the oracle?
Yes, the most holy place.
It's because I think on the cherubims there was this light, right? And
Yes.
they asked God something, then
The
God,
Shekinah.
yeah, he would respond with lighting up one of the cherubims, I think, something
Yes.
like
Right. If he accepted it, the right one was lit up, and if he declined it, the left one was darkened or covered with a cloud or so.
Fragen gestellt habe, wenn Gott Ja gesagt hat oder zugestimmt hat. Also der eine von den Cherubim leuchtete und wenn es ein Nein war, der andere Cherubim würde Glas oder
Verdunkelt mit einer Wolke.
verdunkelt.
The
Okay.
oracle then is placed in the wings.
Between what?
The ark was brought to the oracle,
Mhm.
and then it says, even under the wings of the cherubims. So the oracle is under the wings of the cherubims. So it's like the oracle of the house.
that. I think the Shekinah is what the oracle
I mean,
is.
it's where God's voice comes forth, in a sense. Okay. So I don't know if it's only this place then, or if it's the
No,
whole place.
I mean, it mentions in verse 7, it says, it mentions both the oracle and then into the most holy place. So the room is called the most holy place, and the oracle, as Philip suggests, seems to be where the ark was placed under the wings.
I mean, the wings were to cover the Shekinah, because no one could look at the glory of God. So
To the oracle of the house, into the most holy place.
Maybe. Might be the case. Okay.
Das mag vielleicht sein, dass der Orakel ist quasi unter den Flügeln, also genau dieses Ort in das Allerheiligste, weil es scheint im Vers 7 beide zu nennen, also das Orakel des Hauses und in das Allerheiligste hinein. Also es scheint beide erwähnt zu werden, also der Orakel scheint was anders zu sein als das Allerheiligste.
No, not
I
true.
don't know.
The oracle is the most holy place.
Yes, I was-
1 Kings 6:20.
Okay.
The oracle in the fourth part was 20 cubits in length and 20 cubits in breadth. There it is right there.
Also, where's that one?
1 Kings 6 and verse 20.
Also in 1. Könige 6, Vers 20, das klärt es für uns auf, dass der Orakel ist das Allerheiligste. Denn das Orakel ist 20 Ellen mal 20 Ellen. Also es ist das Allerheiligste.
And then it says in verse 23, and within the oracle he made 2 cherubims of olive tree, each 10 cubits high.
Und dann innerhalb der Orakel macht er 2 Cherubim, jeweils 10 Ellen hoch.
Yes. So we definitely need to look at these things closely and don't start speculating.
So, auf jeden Fall müssen wir diese Dinge nah betrachten, aber nicht spekulieren.
Okay. Let's continue down to verse 10.
So, lasst uns bis Vers 10 hinunterkommen.
It's your turn.
Where did we finish?
The 2 Chronicles 5, 8 down to 10.
For the cherubims spread forth their wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubims covered the ark and the staves thereof above. And they drew out the staves of the ark, that the ends of the staves were seen from the ark before the oracle, but they were not seen without. And there it is unto this day. There was nothing in the ark save the 2 tables which Moses put therein at Horeb, when the Lord made a covenant with the children of Israel when they came out of Egypt. And it came
Okay,
to...
it's enough, thanks. Okay, so what do we see now here in verse 9?
Was können wir sehen im Vers 9?
It's a big topic of conversation.
Yes. Okay, but what do we see here?
Was sehen wir hier?
It's talking about the staves.
Yes.
Also spricht über den Tragestäbe.
Yes.
The staves were. It's not how you imagine it. Most pictures you see and you see the staves that way, but it's not true. They're actually
Yes.
this way.
Right, they are this way here.
So, die gehen in diese Richtung.
And what does it say? Because they, the ark had like, right. Okay, it had these things here below, right?
Also unter der Arche, es hat diese Ringe.
And the staves were through here.
Und diese Tragestäbe, die werden in diese Ringe.
You've got the size wrong again. It's they're on the short ends, not the long ends.
Yeah. Aye.
Yes, because the ark sits like this way, lengthways, because the 2 cherubims are like this, right?
Mm.
And the staves were like that. It's a misconcept. You think they're like this, but they don't cut. They're like that.
Also die Stäbe sind an den kurzen Enden
Because look,
rangelegt.
those 2 cherubims are sitting on the ark, right?
Mhm.
Look where it is. Where it is. Where are the 2 cherubims on the ark?
Oh, there's 4 cherubims there.
No.
There would be that and
Where are
that's.
the 2 cherubims on the ark?
Left and right.
I'm not telling you.
But
They're on left and right, but they're facing in the way, right?
yes, but
But that's the length then from
that's
cherubim.
length.
Okay,
Yes.
but the staves were this way. They were not lengthways in.
Yeah, but then it's right. Because they are here. The cherubims are here and here.
Okay,
right?
that's fine, but I'm just saying your diagram looked like it was the other way around. That's all I'm saying, because
But-
of the way you've drawn it.
I mean, if you think about it, right, this is the throne, right? I mean, if you would carry it other way around, you would basically, like, if someone would sit on the throne, he would be looking like this, and people would carry this way. You know what I mean? That would be.
It's saying it's making sense what you're saying because
No,
that's the
I
throne where
know
the
it.
king's going.
Yeah, it makes sense.
If they were carrying it, the king wants to look forward.
Yeah,
the king doesn't
exactly.
want to be transported sideways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
yeah.
Okay, so the king is sitting here. Okay.
Facing the same way as the
Also
2
der-
big cherubim.
der Könige sitzt hier und er schaut in denselben Richtung wie die Cherubim.
Yes. So he looks this way. Okay. That's the Shekinah of glory.
Und das hier ist der Shekinah, Herrlichkeit.
And looks this way. So the Lord looks down this way.
So der Herr schaut in dieselbe Richtung wie die Cherubim.
And the staves are now here. They are on the bottom of the ark.
Und diese Tragestäbe, die sind unten auf der Unterseite des Arches.
Because
also des Bundeslades.
many say they are on the top.
Und viele sagen, die sind oben drauf.
Okay. And this, so we should look at this also one day. And what does it say? What did they do with the staves here?
Und was taten sie mit den Stäben? Also they pulled them out, but they weren't seen here.
Yeah, they pulled them out, okay,
Also die zogen sie heraus
and they were actually a little bit under the curtain, okay.
und die waren sogar ein bisschen unter den Vorhang.
You sure?
I
Yes.
think so.
It says, but they were not seen without.
Okay, let's go to
Okay.
First Kings, back to First Kings.
Gehen wir zurück zu 1. Könige.
I remember this big discussion. First Kings 6 again.
First Kings 7.
1. Könige 7,
Oh no, actually it's First Kings 8.
1. Könige 8.
Ah.
And let's read verse 8.
Und Vers 8. 1. Könige 8, Vers 8.
I think it's my turn now. And they drew out the staves, that the ends of the staves were seen out in the holy place before the oracle, and they were not seen without. And there they are unto this day. So
Without outside.
yes. Okay, so they are seen in the holy place, but not without the holy
Also die
place.
sind gesehen im Heiligtum, also in den Heilige, aber nichts außerhalb. Von außerhalb kann man sie nicht sehen.
I think it's to show you that when the curtain's drawn, you know the Ark of the Covenant's there. I mean, why would you not know it's there? But I don't know. But they stick out this much, right, or a little bit.
Also die sind sichtbar so ein kleines Stück unter den Vorhang. Und das soll beweisen, dass der Bundeslade wohl im Haus ist. Warum sie das nicht wissen sollten, wissen wir nicht.
Yes. Okay. Alright, so that's basically the main things of this temple, okay?
Das ist im Grunde die Hauptteile dieses Tempels.
And we see definitely some differences to Moses' tabernacle.
Und auf jeden Fall gibt es Unterschiede zwischen das hier und den Heiligtum von Mose in der Wüste.
I mean, here was obviously also still the brazen altar. Okay, we didn't look at this now.
Ich meine, das haben wir nicht so angeschaut, aber natürlich gibt es den blasenen Altar hier auch noch.
Altar of sacrifice.
Der Altar von Opfergaben.
Okay, but the difference is here you have these 10 tables, okay, you have the 10 candlesticks.
Aber der Unterschied ist, wir haben diese 10 Tische hier auf die beiden Seiten und diese 10 Leuchter.
And we still have to find out whether there's now an extra table of showbread or whether it illustrates these 10 tables again.
Und wir müssen immer noch herausfinden, ob es einen weiteren Tisch des Schaubrotes gibt oder
Or maybe Maros has the answer.
I mean, in 2 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 19,
2. Chronik 4,19.
it says, and the tables whereon the showbread was set. So if you're using the plural,
Wenn wir das Mehrzahl oder Einzel benutzen, steht hier und die Tische, worauf das Schaubrot war.
Where did you read
Verse
that?
2 Chronicles 4:19.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
these are on this one.
But it still says the golden altar. And
Yeah, the
yeah.
golden altar is singular.
Yes.
Okay, that's this one. Yes, this might be might be it. Okay. And the tables when the showbread was set. So it's on all tables then.
Das ist dann auf die Tische.
Alright, so that's solved then. Alright. Okay. And then we have this altar of incense here, this golden altar.
Und es gibt diese goldene Altar hier, der Räucherberg.
And we should also try to find out where it's located,
Und wir sollen auch herausfinden, wo genau das platziert
but it's
ist.
most likely here.
Aber es ist höchstwahrscheinlich hier.
Get a point?
Was not each pile symbolizing the throne?
Each
Each pile.
of bread.
Not
No,
a
it's-
throne, a place with somebody sitting on the throne.
It's the
One pile was
Father and the Son.
Father and the Son.
The throne was the table.
Also der Thron war der Tisch und die Brote, die zwei Stapel von Brote war jeweils der Vater und der Sohn auf demselben Thron.
About the 24 elders who were sitting next to the Father and the Son.
They're around the throne.
Yeah, but it's definitely interesting, right? That there's 10 thrones basically then.
Yes.
So
It's 120 breads, right, if you would Because
Yeah,
it was
because
six,
it's, uh,
six, right?
Yes.
120 Brote.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, right. This comes to my mind also now. Because it was 120 breads and how many? 70 lamps, right?
Also 120 Brote und 70 Lampen.
Because 7 per candlestick.
Also
times 10
7
is
pro Leuchter und 10 Leuchter.
Yes. I remember because back then we looked at the number. We looked at those two numbers, right? The 17, 120.
Damals haben wir diese beiden Nummern angeschaut, 70 und 120.
Based upon Ezra 7 verse 9.
Basiert auf Esra 7,9.
Because you had 120 years from the first day of the first month to the first day of the fifth month. It's 120 days.
So 120 Tage vom ersten Tag des ersten Monats bis zum ersten Tag des fünften
And
Monats.
then from the
120
first
Tage.
day of the fifth month to the 10th day of the seventh month is 70 days.
Vom ersten Tag des fünften Monats bis zum 10. Tag des siebten Monats war 70 Tage.
So that's why we also found this out back then. Yeah.
So haben wir das auch damals herausgefunden.
Alright. Yes. So many things to learn from this.
So vieles, was wir hiervon lernen können.
And especially also this Jacob and Boaz. I don't know if we made the right application back then, but
Also damals, ich weiß es nicht, ob wir die richtige Anwendung da herausgearbeitet haben von Jachin und Boas, diese zwei Säulen.
but there we also had some thoughts to this.
Aber wir hatten auch einige Gedanken
And
dazu.
the interesting thing was back then, when we looked at this sanctuary in this movement,
Und das Interessante ist es damals, als wir den Heiligtum betrachtet haben in dieser Bewegung.
this was 2015.
Das war
Okay.
2015.
And this was when the Lord opened to us the binding off structure.
Das ist der Zeit, wo der Herr diese Zeit des Bindens Struktur uns aufgetan
Even
hat.
though it was pretty much false back then, but this was the first time when we
Principles of it.
understood the principles there. Yes.
Obwohl wir es damals relativ falsch ausgelegt haben. So, der Herr hat auf jeden Fall die Prinzipien dessen uns aufgetan.
We learned about midnight.
Wir haben über Mitternacht gelernt.
12.
Yes, we learned about what's it? What I wanted to say. We learned about midnight, about the binding off,
So, über Mitternacht, Zeit des Bindens.
and all these things. And then he also, the Lord started opening up to us the most holy
Und
place.
dann auch der Herr hat angefangen, das Allerheiligsten uns
And
aufzutun.
I remember this. This was like the most solemn presentation that Jeff ever did.
Und ich erinnere mich daran, es war das ehrfürchtigste Vortrag, den Jeff je gehalten hat.
Because there was one brother who was like an artist, Brother Noel,
Und es gab einen Bruder, der war sehr künstlerisch begabt.
and he drew out the most holy place.
Und er hat das Allerheiligste ausgemalt auf den Tafeln.
And Jeff laid out first all these things about midnight, the Mara vision, and the binding off, and all these things.
Und Jeff hat all diese Dinge erstes Mal erklärt über Mitternacht, der Mara Vision, also der Zeit des Bindens und so weiter.
And then he switched over the board, okay.
Und dann hat er den Tafel gewendet
And then was this thing, the most holy place, drawn out by Noel.
und dann war der Allerheiligste ausgezeichnet von Bruder Noel.
And then he laid these things, he put them basically together with the most holy place.
Und
Okay.
er hat all diese Dinge, die er ausgelegt hat, in Verbindung mit dieser Allerheiligste gebracht.
And this was, I still remember, it was so solemn.
Ich
Okay.
erinnere mich, es war so ehrenfürchtig.
And right after God gave them this understanding, they went into darkness.
Gerade nach der Herr diese Verständnis gegeben hat zu sie sind ins Dunkelheit gegangen.
Because they didn't live up to this great light that the Lord gave them. Okay.
Sie haben nicht nach diesem großen Licht, die der Herr sie gegeben hat, gelebt.
Therefore, it's a fearful thing when the Lord shows us the most holy place, and He will fully do it here at the midnight cry. Okay.
Es ist eine furchtbare Sache, also furchterregende Sache, wenn der Herr, der Allerheiligste, uns offenbart. Und er wird das vollständig am Mitternachtsruf für uns tun.
And we don't follow in this exceeding bright light, we go into perfect darkness.
Und wenn
Okay.
wir nicht nach diesem äußerst helles Licht leben, dann werden wir auch ins Finsternis gehen.
So God gave us 2015 like a miniature taster of
It
this.
says, hold, 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 it's exceeding bright light.
Der
Yes.
Herr hat uns einen kleinen Vorgeschmack in 2015 dessen gegeben. Bruder Mark sagt, halt, 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 halt. Ellen White sagt, dass das äußerst helles Licht ist.
And we must understand this movement is God's movement.
Wir müssen verstehen, dass diese Bewegung ist eben Gottes Bewegung.
And we really made a prophetic experience in this movement so far.
Und wir haben bisher eine prophetische Erfahrung gemacht.
God really led this movement step by step, even though it's always a miniature version of all these things He wants to give us.
So, Gott hat diese Bewegung Schritt für Schritt geführt, auch wenn es nur eine Miniaturversion ist von all dem, was er uns geben möchte.
Nobody else understands these things as we do.
Niemand anderem in der ganzen Welt versteht diese Dinge so wie wir.
Okay, so and God again wants to bring us into the most holy place, and then we will see Christ face to face.
Und Gott möchte uns ein weiteres Mal in das Allerheiligste hineinführen. Und dann werden wir Christus von Angesicht zu Angesicht betrachten.
Okay, amen.
Amen.
Okay, then let's close for this evening.
Dann lasst uns für heute Abend abschließen.